Welcome to the Essential Geopolitics podcast from Stratfor, a RAIN company. I'm Emily Donahue. Today I'm speaking with Stratfor's senior European analyst, Adriano Bosoni. Welcome.
Hello, Emily. Nice to talk with you again.
The German government recently released a proposal to link the disbursement of EU funds to maintaining a strong rule of law. Why is this idea so controversial in Europe?
Well, the European Commission and several countries in Western Europe are worried that the rule of law may be weakening in countries like Poland and Hungary. The European Commission has warned that decisions such as reforming the judiciary to allegedly put it under more supervision from the government, or pressure on critical journalists actually goes against EU values. So in recent years, there has been a debate over whether or not countries where the rule of law is weakening should receive EU money if they are in a way violating EU principles. This has been under discussion for years now, but Germany, which currently holds the rotating presidency of the EU, has issued a proposal to actually implement the idea. So it's the first time that we have a concrete proposal to link the disbursement of EU funds to maintaining a strong rule of law. But of course, it's kind of a compromise proposal that is not making anyone happy. Central and Eastern European countries have criticized it, but also Northern and Western European countries for different reasons.
Let's talk about those reasons. This seems like it might be a cloaked threat to Central and European countries.
Yeah, it is a threat because these countries are net receivers of EU funds. It means that they get more money from the EU in terms of cohesion funds, agricultural subsidies, and other European money than what they contribute. So they are net receivers of EU money. And for them, it's a really big deal. It's been one of the drivers for their economic expansion since they joined the European Union. So if they no longer receive that money, their economies will be negatively affected. And they are worried about this because at the same time, they are both net receivers of EU money and have been accused of weakening the rule of law. So they stand a lot to lose if a direct link between the two issues is established. And this is not only about Hungary and Poland. I know these are the two most prominent countries, but the entire region is worried about this. Countries as diverse as Slovenia and the Czech Republic, and even some of the Baltic states, have spoken against the link between the rule of law and EU money. Some of them because they are worried that they could be targeted next if this is implemented, but others because they think that ideas such as EU values are vague. So there is not a concrete way to identify what exactly is an EU value and what exactly means to break those values. So they don't want to connect something as important as EU funds, which I insist is very important for them. They don't want to connect it to what they perceive as an political debate and not so much a legal debate over whether or not they are weakening the rule of law or whether or not they are respecting EU values.
Can I ask you a little clarifying question here, Adriano? The rule of law is a political question internally, certainly to these countries, correct?
Yes, and the thing is, the original plan, what the European Commission originally proposed, was a very broad definition of rule of law that would punish things such as the Polish reform of the judiciary or Hungarian pressure over independent media. So it's a very broad definition. But the German proposal, the one that was recently released, has a much narrower approach. And they are saying that they only should cut funds to those countries that misuse that money, to those countries that have corruption in the use of European money, to countries that get European money and then they steal it or they use it for something else. So it's a much narrower definition. It's not what the European Commission wants, which is this broad idea that could include pretty much anything. It's a much more specific way to link EU money to legal issues in every member state. Of course, the Germans are doing this for many reasons. On the one hand, I think the Germans are being realistic in the sense that you need a very specific definition of what represents a break of the law and what represents a justification to stop sending money to a country. So that's one part of the explanation. But I think that the Germans are also worried that Hungary, Poland, and many other countries could veto very important decisions that the EU has to make in the coming months, such as the approval of the next budget for the 2021-2027 period, or the implementation of the coronavirus relief fund. These are all decisions that require unanimity, which means that every single member state has veto power. So the Germans are probably worried that Poland, Hungary, and many others could actually use their veto power as a bargaining chip in their dispute because of the rule of law debate. And of course, there's also a broader and deeper geopolitical concern. And these are all countries in Germany's natural sphere of influence. For the lack of a better term, they are in Germany's backyard, so to speak. So Germany also tries to be in a moderate position when it comes to Central and Eastern Europe, because they are worried about pushing them too hard, alienating them, and to some extent reducing their interest in being EU member states. These countries are members of the EU for many, many reasons, but one of them is the money. And Germany is probably worried that if EU money is no longer on the table, these countries may look to, I don't know, China, Russia, or any other sponsors. So that's a geopolitical concern that probably explains Germany's very, very modest proposal.
So how has Germany's proposal on this issue generated reactions in Western Europe then?
Well, Western Europe, some Western European countries believe that the proposal doesn't go far enough. Some Western and Northern European countries would like to define the rule of law the same way that the European Commission has, to include things such as the reform of the judiciary. So they are criticizing the Germans for kind of, quote-unquote, backing down and being too soft on Central and Eastern Europe. So, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, the Germans tried to be in the middle and try to satisfy both the East and the West, but they ended up irritating actually both.
Yeah. Adriano Bosoni is Stratfor Senior European Analyst. Thank you for that guidance, Adriano.
Thank you, Emily.
You can read Adriano Bosoni's forecast on Europe, business, and geopolitics in the fourth quarter with a subscription to Stratfor Worldview. Check out the special price for podcast listeners at stratfor.com/podcast offer. That's all one word, stratfor.com/podcast offer. I'm Emily Donahue. There's more online.